And we're back. Yes. So we were talking before the break. You were mentioned about, I believe you said one of your coworkers was trying to figure something out and use the chat GPT. I've been hearing a lot about that too, but it reminded me of a situation, one of my many temp gigs, and the temp agency, for those of you who probably don't know, but I tell you, that's how I've been making it a lot of times coming out of law school, and just when times is rough, go to the temp agency. So temp agency, so I get all the way down, I forgot what even the company, and it was like, I lived in, so people probably have no idea, but anyway, but you at least understand, was in Grandview, but drove all the way almost to the airport. You're talking about almost a 40-minute drive.
Yeah.
For some company, I don't even remember what they do. It may have been an engineering or some company. And they asked me to do something. And it's funny, the lady, she was a secretary, admin. She was all like, yeah, so, the agency said that you knew how to do this. And I'm like, I had no idea. I've never done it before. And what did I do? I used the help. I went to Microsoft. Because they wanted to create a form with a drop down boxes. And I've never done that before, but I was like, man, it's gotta be. So I used help. I went over to Windows Help and figured it out. And then I'm thinking, you paid? And I'm like, thinking the secretary, you could have did this. Yes. You actually outsourced, paid for me but I'm like, hey, I'll take it, but
cash my check.
Right. But it's like,
also,
right. But that is real. And what you're talking about, you were talking about earlier, how, and I had mentioned too about, there's a meetup where you can learn how to do different coding, and there's and people call YouTube University.
Oh, yeah.
As long as you got an internet connection and the ability to search search terms and click.
I feel like I could do a root canal or a heart transplant or something. If it's on YouTube, I can follow instructions for the rest of them. But except for cars do.
You gotta. Well, you need the equipment, and I think that
right.
So you just need, and I think they do that on purpose. But
you're right. You're right. It's a mindset because but that's where we are now. And at least with my company, there is a lot of basically figure it out type mentality. And some people have gotten on board with that, and some people haven't. And honestly, you're just gonna get left behind if you can't get on board with it. I was on a call with multiple departments, and we are all using the same kind of technology. The technology that we had, the version that we were on, we were way behind on it, so they were doing a major upgrade, and the difference between the version that we had and the version that we were going to was so vastly different that it was it essentially was a brand new product.
Wow.
And so, and how we were going to use it, we were also going to have to move from legacy servers onto cloud servers. So that whole tech stack was going to be completely different. And so we were on this call with a lot of older people, who've been at the company for, I'm talking 30, 40, plus years. And everybody was kind of having this kind of thing, was just like, we don't know this technology. We don't know how to do this. How are we supposed to be able to do? Because before we did have a team for a while, and that's the other thing, is that there's been a lot of restructuring, and so we did have teams that were kind of dedicated to this idea of whatever the new technology is, they will become experts in whatever the new technology is. We kind of had a DevOps team that would be like, okay, our expertise is in Linux or in Unix, or our expertise is in, Windows servers, or our expertise is in this type of tech stack or whatever. And then you had just like a team of people. So whenever you had things that you had to take care of that involved those things, you would just go to that team. Well, they've restructured it now that like application teams, like whoever is working on the application or whoever is supporting the application, it is up to you to support and learn and understand everything that goes with that application.
Wow.
So things that used to be a completely, so that means we are having to become Linux experts. We are having to become, cloud experts and Tomcat experts and all these different kinds of things that don't necessarily have anything to do with the coding itself. You know what I'm saying? That part is more so infrastructure type stuff. We always use to be able to pass that off to another team. Now we have to do all of it. And I remember being on a call with the guy where people were complaining about like we don't it's going to be a what do they call it, a learn there's going to be such much of a learning curve
Learning
because we don't
curve.
know this, we don't know how to do it. And he basically said, and people thought he was rude for saying this, but he basically said, he was like, you're engineers, we're all engineers,
Right.
learn it.
Yeah.
He said that basically he was like, we gone are the days where
Right.
you
We're getting,
get just one person who would go learn it and come
yeah,
back and
yeah.
teach you, or get one person who would go learn it and come back and be the SME, we used to call it, the subject matter expert or whatever.
Right.
No, you have to, he said, you're an engineer,
Yeah.
learn it,
Yes.
and so that's where we are. We're just,
Yeah.
if we don't know it, we're trying to find the answer. We're trying to become experts in all these different things because that's just what the hour calls for.
Hmm.
And so but it is a mentality. I do feel like there's
Yeah.
some people who are just like, oh, I can't figure it out, and then that's it. Or I don't, it's beyond me, or this the systems change and blah blah blah, but don't have that let's go figure it out kind of mentality.
Right.
You
Right.
know.
Well, and that's part of why I doing this episode and what I'm trying, because I'm seeing that even in the legal field. I mean, coming out in 2010, and it's like we learned all this stuff, and they have mute court and all this, what's called law review and writing all this traditional stuff, and you come out and what's available, this using e-discovery was like electronic discovery. Because we
Yeah.
even in law school, we're physically going to the library, and it's like how many law firms are like they use a software program that's looking it up. So I
Yeah.
mean, I guess they're trying to make sure you at least know how to do the basics, and if something happens to the computers and they shut down, that you can go
Sure.
to the physical library. But I'm like, stuff had changed probably just in the time we was in school had
Yeah.
changed so much. And
Exactly.
it's like, would you, because even when I'm seeing that was what 2010, you're talking about 13 14 years ago. Now they're requiring people, do you have experience using this it's called relativity, and there's some other ones using this software, and it's just like, oh my gosh. But yet it's like the schools are, hopefully nowadays the schools are catching up. But I like what you're
Yeah.
saying, because I feel like there's people that's not going to tell you the truth. There's people that's not, like you said, that guy in that call said, there's people that are not going to be honest with you. You got a lot of people that's placating people, but secretly they're
Right.
going to drop you. They're like, okay, so
Yeah.
and so is not
100%.
catching on.
Right.
She's getting the boot.
Yeah.
She's getting the, and so,
Yep.
and that's what I see. It's that competition. It's like it's survival of the fittest, and you
Yeah.
have to learn how to retool. You can't, because even I'm just on this thing I just started as well. They had like a probably 5 days of training. They was like, this is it, guys. Like it was what they call put you on the floor. Like once we had this training, then we put you on the floor. You're on your own.
Yeah.
And you just
Right.
hopefully you took notes, or I mean, there is a thing where you're able to ask questions. And then this whole Microsoft Teams, like that's how I made it through the
Yeah.
pandemic, was doing that. Like that's a whole, and you can hear different ones were like, oh, I'm having trouble, with all the different programs. And it's like, this is where we're at. And it
Yeah.
is kind of, nobody's gonna come and not, and like I said, I don't want to say whether that's good or bad. It's just the
Yeah.
reality of where we are.
Yes. Thank you. It's good or bad or indifferent. It's
Right.
the reality.
It's the
It's where we are.
reality. And I do not want people to be left behind. I
Yeah.
want people, if you look at technology, and that's even when I talk to some of the people that we've been attorneys, and I always got my girlfriends, we're sitting there talking about, we're like, oh, we should have went to medical school.
Yeah.
We're always like, wondering, oh,
Look, that's changing every day too. What you talking
yes,
about?
and that's the thing about it. Like until you're in it, and well, like the teledoc. I had a
Yeah.
appointment with my doctor, and just like this, like a kind of a video like this. And so my thing is, please let us pay attention as technology goes. That's where industries are going, and people may think, oh,
Mhm.
this will never. You have no idea. And like you were just saying, how technology is changing so quickly. It's almost like trying to
Yeah.
keep up, and you have to teach yourself. And that's what I feel like I've been doing for the last number of years. I've been teaching myself, because if I waited on somebody to come and sit down and say,
Oh yeah.
okay, Shalonda, here's X, Y, Z, you do this first. No. Sometimes you
Yeah.
can't reach a trainer. Sometimes you can't reach your manager, your supervisor. A number of times I couldn't reach a supervisor or manager to ask them a question. A lot of times I've been on my own, and I just had to figure it out. And I
Mhm.
believe that is a skill set, but I believe, and you can, you let me know. I believe that's something that can be learned and developed.
It can, and I like what you said that it 100% is a skill set. And
Mhm.
if anything, the way things are moving so fast,
Yeah.
it's almost like these soft skills are the ones that are really going to carry you
Okay.
because it's the same thing. It's like you learn all these we have all these different homegrown or we just have all these people who are COBOL programmers
Okay.
who have been doing COBOL for 20, 30, 40, 50 years,
Right.
and they're the ones who are having the hard time making the adjustment
Transition.
to open
Yeah.
systems. And so having a skill in a certain language or having a skill um in a certain part of technology isn't as important as having the soft skill of being able to adapt and being
Yes.
able to be
Flexible.
flexible and
Yeah.
being able to learn quickly
Mhm.
because of how things are moving so fast. It's like the let's see the last year this time I
Mhm.
was learning a tool that we were using for RPA, robotic process automation.
Okay.
Learn, just on the fly. My boss was like, "Hey, we're going to be doing this. The dev team doesn't have time to do this, so as a support, we need to learn how to do this process, learn how to do this product, use this product, learn how to do, and then the native language for this was C sharp, which I had never really done C sharp before.
Okay.
So I spent a good portion of that year, like 8 months, learning this program, learning a lot of taking training and putting and getting scripts, getting
Mhm.
things in place, getting things into prod. Um 8, 9 months later, our company buys its competitor.
Oh,
And so
wow.
now we have to swivel and okay, forget that product. It's the same concept, but now we
Right.
got to learn this product. And
Yeah.
now we've got to build up this infrastructure. And like I said before, whereas we had a whole other team who would build up the infrastructure and get all the configure. Now it's up to us to do all that. So it's not before I even can get to the coding part, I've got to stand up, this whole environment. And it's a different kind of environment because it's a different product. So
Right.
I'm like, all of this old year that I spent, learning this whole thing doesn't really matter because now we're doing something different. Basically, do the same thing you did, but with this,
Right.
and then do it quickly because we need it yesterday. That kind of thing. And so and
Putting
so
out
just
fires. Yeah.
yeah, and so having the ability to be able to learn, pick up things quickly, and
Mhm.
ingest information, and and then use being able to put it to use quickly. Yeah, it's a fast paced situation. Everyone is wants their stuff. All of our clients are, we've got all these service level agreements that require us to if there's problems to fix
Mhm.
it very quickly and to have no service interruptions and things like that. So it can get kind of hectic, but
Okay, so well, let me ask about maybe any challenge. I kind of got to. I'm thinking two things. Any challenges along the way, because now you basically a veteran. We gonna call you you've been in the game for a minute.
been in
So
the game.
tell me,
Yeah.
so kind of some of them early years or in times where there were pivotal changes when they're like, okay, now we're switching. Because I think you were because what's your title again right now?
I am a software engineer, senior software engineer.
Okay, but before it was
I
something
was a developer. Yeah.
developer. Okay,
Yeah.
so and even just making transitions, how was it, did you function very independently or did you at least have a buddy? And like kind of what I was talking about earlier, sometimes you may not be able to reach your manager or your supervisor, but did you
Right.
have just kind of a buddy was like, hey, did you, do you know how to fix this? Or
Yeah, it was actually the way they did it was really the way they had the program set up was really good. So when you got out of the program, you were basically assigned a team, and on
okay,
that team, you of course you had your manager, but you were also assigned with a buddy or a
okay,
a mentor, essentially, I
okay,
think is what they called it. But so I had a mentor or a guy who was supposed to be my mentor. He
yeah,
didn't really end up being it. I ended up going to some other folks
okay,
a little bit more
right,
on the
right,
team. and it was some other because there wasn't it was a lot of guys on the team. There were two other girls, and so I ended up,
Yeah.
you know, uh, uh,
Navigate.
yeah, I ended up getting a little closer with the girls. So they're the ones that I usually went to. What's interesting about how I kind of started is because the training was so quick and it was so much information in a short amount of time. Like I said, we're talking about 6 months learning, you know, what some people learn in 4 years and 6 months.
Okay.
And not having any background whatsoever
Right.
of programming and programming any kind of programming language. Then it was the first for the first probably few years, um, the hard part was getting that information and landing it in the right place.
Mm.
When you are when you are being sent a bunch of information and
Mhm.
you don't have any place to put it, or you don't
Right.
have the correct
Context.
yeah, you don't have the correct concept, then it's just information floating around and
Right.
it really
Right.
doesn't mean anything. I
Mm.
remember being working on a process even when I was in full service or just in on the call rep. We used to call what was a broker identification number. We called it a bin. We used to call it a B65 number. That's just what everybody called it. And it
Okay.
was like, so somebody would call in, they were like, and then we would ask them for the number, and then you would tell them like, oh, we need to get the B6. Did you get the B65? Yeah, we need to get the B65. You need to get the B65, right? So that's just always what we were. That was just the terminology
Right.
of where we came from, right? So I get over it. So now I'm in programming, and now I'm doing some of the stuff that I used to do on the you know the client side of things, on the GUI side of things. Now I'm in the background and the database side of things in the
Okay.
background, seeing what all made up that screen that I was looking at before, seeing
Yeah.
what made up these reports that we were getting. And so, but it was still a disconnect there,
Okay.
right? I remember one time I was asking, I was supposed to produce a report for somebody,
Mhm.
and I remember having to ask somebody. I was like, okay, so they want the bin and they want name blah blah blah. And I'm like, what tables do we keep the bin on? Or no, actually, what I said, I was like, what? Because I knew the bin was a B65. I was like, what tables do we keep the B65 on? And the people I was working with, they were like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "The B65." I'm like, What table is that on?" And they were like, the B65." And I didn't connect because it was a database table called the B65, and that's
Okay.
where we kept the bin. And even though I heard those phrases all the time, it hadn't connected in my brain that it was associated, and that was the
Okay.
same thing. So I was like, because in the full service world, we didn't know what database tables were. We didn't know that there was some, you know what I'm saying? At least I
Mhm.
didn't. I didn't know that there were things that made up this stuff, right? And
Right.
so I never would have thought either that we would be taking terminology from something that we didn't do anything with and relate that to what something that we actually were doing stuff with. And
Mhm.
so I'm like, oh, so that's why that's why we were calling it the B65 because it's on the B65 table. And so a lot of that being able to basically
Yeah.
plug and play,
Mhm.
taking all this information that I have from the business world and combining it with the information that I now have
Yeah.
from the tech world and seeing where they all fit.
Mhm.
I do feel like you can be um, a technical asset and a technical help, um, and do what you have to do
Right.
without necessarily knowing a ton of the business, but
Okay.
it definitely helps. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's why even with like finding looking at jobs now, even though they're tech type jobs, they still want you to have some level of
Mhm.
understanding of whatever the business is. So if
Right. What
it's
they're doing.
accounting,
Yeah.
if it's marketing, whatever, they want you to have a little bit of knowledge at
Right.
least of what how things work,
Right.
because it does help in figuring out some things that you have to figure out. And so that was kind of the struggle I felt like, is because even when I got because all I knew was the full service kind of like call center type thing. So
Yeah.
there was a lot more to like the side of the NSCC and money movement and the market,
Oh,
and there was
right.
a lot of other stuff that I didn't necessarily have to deal with when I was over here in the
Mhm.
call center that now I'm more a part of. So
Right.
it was going to be more helpful for me to understand
Right.
how all that stuff worked and
Right.
understand the business side and the business why of a lot
Right.
of things. Because
Right.
you'll have a client ask for some report or ask for some type of application and you're like, "Why? Like, what do you like, what do you need that for? Like, what are you trying to do?" Like, I know what you're
Right.
asking
Let me
for, but what are you
understand.
trying
Yeah.
to do?
Yeah. What's the
Because,
goal?
we could probably get to that a lot easier than what you were asking for. And
Right.
so some of that is just kind of knowing the client, knowing the business, and, that just helps to be able to, provide what they really want.
Right. Well, that's even like I'm doing right now on a kind of on a project with auditing, and I've also done similar auditing with SBA. But what helped is because I knew the program that we were auditing,
Mhm.
so and then I kinda understood. So as I'm going and basically checking and making sure everything was done right, but I had the what's it called? I had that foundation of I already knew what the
Yeah,
initial program was, so now I know what makes it's like you almost in a way, well, it's like a coach, I guess.
yeah,
If he's played the game, then he can know and spot different things in the game because he's actually
right.
been a player as opposed to if he
Yeah,
just come out and start coaching. So yeah, context helps. And that's what I even try to learn. And I want to encourage people too. And it's kind of was disheartening because I was in this training. So the first 2 days, the trainer was teaching us what the other people were doing, so we had an understanding, and then we went into the training of what we were gonna do, and so I'm like, "Well, that makes sense. Let's if we're gonna be basically kinda QCing other people, the quality control of what other people doing, we kinda need to know what they're doing and what they should be doing."
right, right.
What have you witnessed, in tech, in your experience that, I don't know, I guess we'll say with some major changes? I mean, you kinda alluded to this earlier, with things moving quickly, going from the kind of the you said the database to more of the application.
Yeah, so a lot of, we have, at least our company, and I feel like a lot of companies are doing this as well, but, COBOL, mainframe systems, all of that kind of, is IBM mainframes. It's just very expensive, right?
No, okay.
So,
Yeah,
having a lot of data
just more.
on big mainframe systems is just a lot of overhead, just a lot of money. But the thing is about it is that big data, like financial stuff, like banks and mutual funds, it requires kind of a heavy lift,
Yeah.
and that's what mainframes do.
Mhm.
Um, the cloud kind of open systems type way of doing things can't really handle a lot of big data.
Mm.
So we're trying to so the goal kinda is to get off the mainframe, but we roll our eyes about that. We've been trying to I've been at this company since 2000, right? So going on, 24 years, and
Okay.
they were talking about getting off the mainframe when I first started. So
Okay.
we always have the joke that we have our main, database files, what we call master and history,
Mm.
or a set of vsam files, which we've been trying to get off of vsam files and at least onto db2 for a long time, which they've made strides in doing that, but it's still so much part of our core,
Yeah.
like nightly processing,
Right.
that the joke is that my kids will be we will still be
Working
sitting
on
around like, well, one of these days we're gonna get the master in history off of VSAM. And it's kind of like, we kind of
the
it's kind
running.
of tongue in cheek, and like that's probably not gonna happen. But even with other applications that we have that are outside of the mainframe, we
Mhm.
still have on a lot of different like Unix, or we have on a lot of different like Linux servers.
Okay.
So the idea with that is to even still get away from Linux and get into more or at least legacy type still Linux, but still legacy type servers that are like that we're now getting into the cloud, right? So
Yeah.
it's a lot of like type virtual type servers, getting things off of these like on-site type
Right.
servers, and
Mhm.
really kind of getting things into uh um getting things into, we'll say, where there's not one specific server that you're running things on, but that you have it set up in a way that you can tear down quickly and spin up quickly, right? So that
Oh,
you're all hanging on to maybe your host name, but the IP that you're using could change, things like that. And so where we have so those that's part of the stuff that's kind of new to application teams,
mhm,
because like I said, that used to be something that we had DevOps for, or a certain type of group of people who
mhm,
were dedicated to do that stuff. And
mm,
we still have some of those things. We have, like, dedicated networking people who still know all the networking stuff and things like that. But we've had to learn a lot more about networking than I've probably ever wanted to learn,
yeah,
just because a lot of times things are getting pushed back to the app teams.
mhm,
But so yeah, so a lot of that, and all of behind all of that is always trying to save money, right? So
mm, yeah,
um trying to get the a lot of the moves that we've made, we're trying to get out of contracts, trying to get out of
okay.
um like contracted things, and trying to use um open sourced type freeware, right?
Oh,
So there's a free version out there that
yeah,
is open source. They're like,
okay,
why are we paying these people to
mhm,
do something that we could do for free?
yeah,
So there's a lot of that moving on. So it's and that's again, that's just always, they're just trying to squeeze as much as they can out of this turnip, and we'll see where it ends up landing us. But
yeah,
at least that's my experience
with that.
with it.
Well,
So
I guess my concern about everything that been in the cloud is security. I mean, it's like, how do you
yeah.
really secure the cloud? Uh,
Yeah, and I mean that's that part, we do still have a team for that. So they're working overtime always, always keeping things secure, always making sure that we are, compliant, and
mhm,
things like that. So uh
yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So as we wrap up, what would you say to someone who's, trying to, well, and I guess to, let's maybe even make it more practical. Somebody where whatever they were doing is now, a lot of people came through COVID and their, the job shut down, and when we came back out of well, we was sequestered. uh it the job wasn't
Uh,
there anymore. A lot of, and
yeah,
that's not even, it's one of the things where like, oh COVID, but I'm like, a lot of the stuff was already coming and happening before COVID, and people, and they were just
mhm.
using COVID as an excuse to we was already planning on downsizing and readjusting, and then even with inflation, like you said, and I've even seen it in whole industries where they're just trying to find ways, like I said, what they're doing and what they're getting away with. It's, and you can just know it's all about trying to cut costs.
Oh yeah.
So, somebody that may have had something, may have been doing something for the last maybe 15 years, or maybe somebody coming out of college, somebody graduating from high school, or just trying to transition, maybe they are at that call center right now,
Yeah,
work as a teller at a bank. And they're just like, I don't know, I don't really want to go back to school, or or I haven't been to school, and they don't want to be in debt like the rest of us over here fighting, fighting to get our
sure.
student loans forgiven. Uh,
Yeah.
to well, and then that's the thing too. Tech is so wide and vast.
Mhm. Yeah.
That maybe they can kind of dip their, kind of when you think about even the medical field, you think, well, maybe just start off as like a nurse, what is it called, a CNA. Is there like a low bar of entry? I guess, what would you, yeah, encourage or advise someone?
I would say, and like I said, it's changing a lot. I think probably, I was trying to find what I was trying to introduce to my son, because I was trying to get, I have,
Okay.
my son is 9. I was trying, and probably when he was, well, like 6 or 7, I was trying to introduce him to some coding. And what we did is I got this Raspberry Pi. I don't know if you've ever heard of Raspberry Pi. It's basically just like a little tiny um operating system, or
Okay.
a little tiny computer, right?
Okay.
So I've got this guy here. So this is all it is, right? So
Okay.
it's in a case.
Okay.
So but the Raspberry Pi itself, it's encased in this box, but it's just a small motherboard, right? And it's but
Mhm.
it's a I mean it's a whole computer.
Wow.
And so it's Linux, is the operating system. Well, technically, I guess Raspberry Pi is the operating system, but on it, it has a lot of different because it was sort of marketed towards kids, right? To
Okay.
teach
Right.
kids coding.
Right.
So it has a lot of different coding um coding activities and coding applications on there to teach kids all
Okay.
types of different ways to code. So I would say some of the languages that are good to start with is Python. Python is a scripting type language
Mm-hmm.
where you can use Python to use something very as simple as scripting out
Like an app.
doing some calculations, or you can
Okay.
use Python to do a whole application. So
Okay.
I would say, or another thing is web applications, like so like the front end piece of a web app. So like
Okay.
HTML, CSS, JavaScript, things like that. There's a lot of different you could just Google like learn HTML or Google, learn web applications. And there's a lot of free um,
Okay. Mhm.
services out there that has the playground where you can play around with it, and they'll teach you along the way, like how to build a website. Um, you could I would start there.
Okay.
You could then kind of get into like learning SQL, learning some other like database type stuff. But
Mm.
I would say like getting something that you can kind of just play around with. Python's always a fun kind of. It's kind of fun because it's quickly rewarding. You can kind of learn that stuff and then be able to build something
And see.
fairly quickly, and
Yeah.
then be like, look, I built this application, and
Mm.
then kind of, so yeah, I think that would be, if someone's looking into something like that, that'd probably be a good start.
Okay. Well, we definitely appreciate you sharing your journey, your testimony. Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
Yes.
Sharing your
Yes.
testimony, your
Oh,
journey,
glory to
and
God for sure.
yes. And like I said, we just, this podcast is about solutions. We don't want anybody to be left behind. And just like we were saying earlier, the reality is everybody's not gonna be upfront with you. Like it's one of those things where the world is moving and we gotta keep going. We gotta catch up. A lot of us have
Yeah.
to catch up. But I guess what we're saying is doable. It's doable. And
Mhm.
like we're talking about tech today, but it can be something else, maybe that may not be for you. But I want to encourage our listeners to please stay agile, be ready to pivot, be flexible, and please work on those skills that teach yourself. I mean, there's many things I've had to just figure it out. I think I got
Mhm.
that a lot. I think we say got that a lot from our dad. There were a
Yeah.
lot of things that because he started a church, on his own, and then of course when he started, we started. So
Right.
there was a bunch of stuff.
Fivefold ministry.
Yes, yes. There were a bunch of things he did not. It was like a voluntold,
Yeah.
voluntold, and he would like say, "Hey, you go in there," and you just like, and he didn't give you no. I was thinking about the other, like how we were doing Sunday school, we were doing all kind of stuff, and like he didn't give us
Oh
no
yeah.
book, no pamphlet, no, just like go in here and figure it out. So
Right.
we just grew up just figuring it out, and I think that's what's helped us to be successful in our careers. And so just so excited to have my sister on the
Yay.
podcast. And we'll have to have you
Keep
back
podcasting.
on to talk about some
Keep
other stuff. I don't know, with
podcasting.
some hair stuff.
Yes.
But
Anytime you want to talk about football, let me know. I'm here.
football, okay. That's cool. Maybe soccer. I don't know much about. I'm learning about soccer.
I still don't know no about soccer. I can put my son in the seat and he can tell you everything. I
Yes.
personally feel confused.
But no, so I'm excited. Well, can't see you getting that women's soccer team.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but yes. So once again, thank you for tuning. Oh yes, guys, please like, share, and subscribe. Like we would love to get to a place where we can be on location, where we can interview and be showing you stuff live. Here is the exact thing. Like I want to be that person that's like, here's the factory area. There's the eclipser. I don't know. But
Yes.
so that is our dream, our hope, and our goal. But Until next time, keep fighting the good fight and make every second